Let's take our next discussion. To nip crime in the bud, the best approach is to be proactive rather than reactive. Falling alarm raised about threats to the 2023 elections. The Inspector General of Police Usman Baba Alkali has met with leaders of 18 political parties that will participate in the polls. The meeting, which took place at the force headquarters, Abuja, was convened to avoid electoral violence before, during, and after the elections. Speaking before the meeting went into a closed-door session, Alkali said it is to address threats noticeable in the electoral process before they degenerate. All I'm saying.
Well, I think that is very important. From the look of things and what we've been seeing in the past few days, since September 28th, when the space was open for political campaigns, we've witnessed a lot of violence. Now, about 52 cases in across 22 states. The other time, Ogun State INEC office was burnt. Osun State INEC office was burnt. And I even discovered an innovation to the burning. They soak bread in petrol and they just throw it.
Yeah.
And the whole place just, I mean, who are we? Why should we always be like this? Election has not started, and we have witnessed that level of violence. So you can just predict that this kind of thing can only go worse, except it is nipped in the bud, which I think is what the IG is trying to do. But I also think that beyond that, we need to increase surveillance on the part of the security operatives. And of course, I know that it's very difficult to guard all INEC premises because we don't have such manpower. Unfortunately, we are not making use of technology to fight insecurity. Otherwise, we could, with ordinary CCTV, we could have probably discovered when some of these actions are about to happen. And we could also effect arrest and all of that. Because I think that beyond just talking about it, we need to arrest those who are doing these things and bring them to book. Otherwise, the likelihood of others continuing is higher. But I think it's a right step. But beyond just calling people, we need to be more proactive as per the protection of facilities, INEC facilities.
All right, so MJ, if members of the intelligence and security community have expressed these kinds of fears, how worrisome is the situation?
Yeah, it's quite worrisome, and worrisome in the sense that when the field was opened by INEC on September 28th, the following day, September 29th, the Interagency Consultative Committee invited all the 18 political parties where they all signed a peace accord. It was as if the peace accord was just on paper. The VP was there, candidates of most of the political parties and their chairmen were there, and they were hugging each other as if everything was normal. But then, I mean, like the IGP at that meeting with the major stakeholders in the 18 political parties yesterday, and of course, security agencies. I mean, he identified three main sources of this political violence. I mean, number one being what Dr. Folutili just mentioned, the burning of, I mean, the direct attack on INEC I mean, that has been happening in the east, but then they have started in the southwest too, where they attacked Ogun and the INEC office in Ede, Osun State. Now, that's number one. And number two, the inter-party conflict where, of course, APC would fight NNDP or Labour versus PDP, where they would, I mean, supporters will be clashing amongst one another. And the third one as very, very terrible, and there's little or nothing INEC and government has been able to do about that, which is the influence of some governors that will not allow the pasting of posters or banners by some other opposition parties. I mean, that is also, I mean, political violence, so to say. It's like you are trying to crowd out others. I mean, where Party A is the ruling party in a particular state, it won't allow other parties to display their out of home material, the one we call billboards and stuff like that, and where they paste posters. In fact, some parties will, some agencies of government will actually particularly tell you that you cannot use billboards in certain routes, in certain areas. So these are the kind of things the IGP mentioned, that we should encourage political tolerance. That is just an election. Elections do happen, but then Yoruba people will say, I mean, you fight with all the tools you have, but in Nigeria, I mean,
there are tools.
Yes, there are several tools that they employ.
Unimaginable.
They believe it is part of a political strategy for them to win an election by depriving the opponent the ability to actually sell themselves or to expose themselves. So, but I think they should do it with a little bit more of decorum.
All right, so in the wake of these threats and insecurity generally, some retired military officers have asked the federal government to consider engaging the service of ex-servicemen.
To do what?
To help in the general insecurity in Nigeria, and also because of how important the 2023 general election is.
Well, it's not a bad idea, really. From the look of things, we also know that it's not as if we have enough personnel in the police force, for example, the police that are supposed to be in charge of civil unrest and all of that. But we need to also ask ourselves about the funding for this kind of thing. Did we make provision for that? Because it's not something that you can just do midway. Just say you want to employ retired security people to come and help. It's not, we can't start planning that now. Okay? And I don't also think that was included in the budget for 2023. So it's almost like something that is almost impossible to happen, Majid, even though it could be a good idea.
The security agencies are already stretched thin. Like, I mean, INEC has been complaining about funding, and if you look at the off-cycle elections, for example, in some cases they deploy 30,000 security personnel into some of these states. Now we are going to have a general election in about 30. I mean, of course, it's going to be in all the 36 states. However, like 6 states won't be having governorship elections because they are off-cycle. States like Anambra, Ekiti, Kogi, Oshun, I think Bayelsa. So they'll be having off-cycle elections. But the presidential election, senatorial, House of Reps and House of Assembly is all over the country. So even if you look at 20,000 policemen in 36 states, we are talking of about 720,000 minimum. Now, do we have 720,000 security personnel? That is including the civil defense, immigration.
And other sister agencies.
Other sister agencies. Of course, the military don't get involved in election at the polling units. They only stay at the background in case there is a need for them to. So I think what the ex-servicemen are saying is that, yes, there might be a need to recall them, but then would INEC have that provision to pay for them? Because elections are quite expensive. Because all these men...
I think they are charging the federal government directly, not INEC.
Yeah, well, it's INEC, it is INEC that will deploy them. It is not the federal government. Well, INEC will make a request through those sister agencies, sister security agencies on election. I mean, they have a team. But we are talking of the resources now. I think we need to get to that level where, in Nigeria, where elections are not held on Saturdays, where everything will shut down. In Ghana, they do the elections on weekdays. I mean, they have evolved to that level, and the level of violence has reduced. But it's only in Nigeria that you see a lot of thugs and other urchins being armed for the purposes of elections. And after the elections, these guys, they let loose. So I think our politicians need to really be careful in how they take these elections as a do-or-die affair.
All right, Olabisi, let me have your final take.
Yeah, anyway,
Majorly because this looks like a recycled issue in the country. Every 4 years, and it continues to complain about violence, instigated mostly by politicians.
Well, the good news is that the INEC chairman himself has said that, because I asked him this question personally at a forum, and he said that, well, that usually they even find it better when they are conducting a general election than the off-cycle elections, that at least everybody will be busy in their constituency, unlike the off-cycle elections where they all concentrate on winning a state or all of that. So I think the security situation may not be too violent on a general note if what the police, the IG is doing, and what the peacemakers are saying, I mean, those who signed the truce and all of that, if they really live up to the...
All right. All right, thank you very much.